So here I am, right before going to bed. I just finished watching Darth Microtransaction's latest video about Path of Exile 2. He's talking about how loot changes are coming. It might just be for wisped mobs and the like, hoping for a little bit more. And ding, I get a notification from the Path of Exile Twitter account, and it's a new post about loot. And I'm thinking, okay, here it comes. They're going to change how loot is working for wisps. There might be a few minor changes to boss drops. And that's about it for 0.2.0. Other big changes are going to come in 0.3.0. Bit of a doomer take, right? Hello, little kitty. Zoja, you are interrupting a lot of these videos now in live streams. Okay. I opened the post. I used to watch a lot of Pro Dota 2. And one of the most famous casters at the time used a phrase all the time called the whole kit and caboodle. It kind of just meant, oh, everything is being thrown at it, right? Well, with this patch, Grinding Gear Games is doing the whole kit and caboodle. They are tackling everything in regards to loot, and we are going to take a look at those changes right now here before I head to bed. Here's the post: item changes in Path of Exile 2. It's split into a few sections. We have item rarity, then we have unique boss drop protection, AZMERIAN wisps, rare and magic chests, strongboxes, trial of the Suckumas, trial of chaos, expedition, delirium, accessibility to pinnacle content. This is kind of drops, but not really drops. And then other changes in 0.2.0G. If you just want the baseline, what's actually happening in this patch, it's basically buffs across the board, and they're thoughtful buffs at that. There are some intelligent folks in the community like Sturgog who were a little bit afraid that buffs to loot could go overboard. GGG could overreact in buffing, for example, the wisp pops. Well, it looks like they thought ahead of time, and for example, with the item rarity changes, they're actually lowering the effect of gear-based item rarity, so that the changes that they're making to the actual monsters we're fighting and the mechanics that buff them aren't giga-juiced if players are just going all out rarity, to avoid those situations where you are heavily incentivized to wear all item rarity gear. Some people like that. A lot of people are against it. I'm in this space that I just want to build my character to be as strong as possible. I don't necessarily want to feel like I need to equip those item rarity pieces to get the most out of my play experience. So let's take a look at a few of the highlights from this patch, and then I'll bring up just a few oddities and future concerns that I have with the direction of the game here, because although I'm very positive about these changes, they look great, there is one thing that's irking me a little bit. Let's see if it's irking you as well. So let's start with the item rarity section right here. In order to control the items that monsters drop, they primarily have two stats added to them. Monster item quantity is a stat that increases the number of items that are dropped. Monster item rarity, on the other hand, determines how good the items are that drop, and they wanted to focus more on item rarity in PoE2 to decrease the number of items dropping on the screen. So they provide an example here of what really happens behind the scenes with monster drops. For example, when a wisp was possessed by a monster, it gives the monster +2 drops and 300% more item rarity. The rarity is further increased by each monster that the wisp affected as you were chasing it, and if you're killing the monsters before they even get affected by the wisp, well, then that final monster is not going to be juiced at all by the wisp. This should in theory result in noticeably better item drops, but in practice it doesn't feel meaningful enough. It did not. Wisps did not feel good. This is just one example, but this problem affects item drops game-wide from all monsters and chests, and like I said, they're not just touching wisps, they're touching the whole game here. So we are making some very significant changes to the way that item rarity affects the items you get. Here are some of the highlights. We modified the rarity value at which normal items no longer drop. This means that unique bosses will never drop normal items except for a select few early in the game. This is probably in Act 1. We have had the amount of rare gold drops. This means that if you roll a rare item, you get more rare equipment or rare currency instead of gold. Rare gold piles are now twice as large, so you still get the same amount of gold as before on average W right here, so there's no nerfs in terms of gold. Gold, magic currency, quality currency, flasks, charms, and runes are now much less likely to drop from monsters with high item rarity. These three changes generally result in around 20 to 30% more rare currency, Exalt, Elk, Regal, etc. And in that etc., I presume that also means divine orbs and greater and perfect jeweler's orbs, although they're not noting that here. Also remember, early on in the league, there was also a patch that I think 3x'd the amount of runes that were dropping, and I'm wondering if that ended up having the adverse effect of lowering the amount of currency that was actually being found in the game because it was being replaced by rune drops. This right here is what I'm really excited about. It's higher tier rare items dropping and what they're doing to those higher tier rares. Tier 2 rares now drop 4 times more often. Tiers 3 to 5 now drop 30% more often. The mods of tiered rares have also been improved by cutting out more low-level mods, making them better on average than before. This essentially means the bad mods are being culled. So the tiered rares you are getting will have more valuable modifiers on them, making them better items to sell or use just as base components. So you can either just equip them or actually use them to craft upon, recombinate, and so on and so forth. Here's the awesome one for recombination, by the way. Tier 2 and recombination's also getting a buff. We'll get to it in a moment. Tier 2 and higher magic items now drop 5x more often. The low-level mod culling of tiered magics has been significantly improved, with Tier 2 now culling 50% of the mod range, and improving from there. Tier 5 magic items will usually only roll the highest mod available for a given type. Oh my gosh. So Tier 5 items, this is good. This is the thoughtfulness that I'm thinking of. Tier 5 magic items are going to be excellent crafting bases, and they say as much. This means that tiered magic items should be a much better starting point for crafting or recombination. These changes significantly improve the effect that item rarity has on the quality of the items you receive. Overall, you should see significantly better items when killing more challenging content. Big W there. One side effect of this change would have been to make player item rarity that you get on mods on your gear more valuable also, which is not our intention. This is what I touched on earlier. In order to counter that, we have reduced the effect that these mods have. A good change in my opinion. We have also lowered the map item rarity mods on maps, as these were having too large an effect after these changes. The overall effect of these mods will still be similar to before, but the displayed number is lower. Interesting to read. It's going to take us testing it out, but I'm really hoping it's good. And I suppose before we get to the rest of the stuff, that was really the big chunk of it, you guys. We want to remember, of course, that all this needs to be tested. It all sounds great in theory. It sounds like grinding gear games hooked with this update, no cope, right? They didn't make any rapid changes with the loot. I think they wanted to make sure that they weren't over buffing loot tremendously, because once that happens, there's no way they're going to be able to pull it back, or pulling it back is going to feel even worse for the players who are still playing. And there are quite a few people still playing. I think the peak on Steam was like 65, 70,000 in the past day or so, and that's not counting standalone, which is what I play on in consoles. So there's quite a few people still playing. This was probably the right decision. I'm gonna say it would have been awesome if it would have happened faster, but given the Easter holidays and the special holidays in New Zealand, it makes sense that they just wanted to make sure they got it right. I enjoy the explanations here, especially with the whole item rarity section, and as we'll see in a second, the other changes to loot-based leagues and the like are also pretty thoughtful. That is like that's the word of the video, is thoughtful. my brain's probably a little dead. It's 11:50 p.m. here. Oh god. Okay, so next section, and this is something that kind of already started happening in 010, or at least I remember reading something like this. Unique boss drop protection. Even if a monster has high monster item rarity, sometimes you can still get a bad drop because you're unlucky, right? Drop protection involves adding an additional item in the case where you didn't get lucky with the items that naturally dropped. We already have some in place to prevent some of the worst cases, but we didn't think that they went far enough. Okay, so they made this change. Except for a few unique bosses at the end of Act 1, all unique bosses will always drop a rare item. Good change. In the campaign, you only get the guaranteed rare item the first time you kill the boss. In maps, you always get it. Okay, so that makes sense. So you're always getting a rare from every single unique boss that you're killing. So I don't think that counts for Rogue Exiles and the like. I think that's a fine change. I was already getting a lot of rares. I'm sure you were in the end game. Now, what I think would be smart here is making, and Sir Gog actually presented this in our Path of Exile that we do. It's a Mobalytics podcast, and Sir Gog essentially said bosses should just always drop tiered items in the end game, right? At least tier 2, okay? And then have a much greater chance to drop tier 3, 4, 5 and the like. And that would just be very exciting to especially fight pinnacle bosses. It doesn't seem like they're going in that direction. It's just always one rare item. Maybe they'll consider it in the future. We'll have to see what those drop rates look like. Remember, by the time this video is out, the patch is probably out, so maybe you're listening to this video and my silly thoughts while playing. Let me know how it feels in the comments below, by the way, if you're already blasting and seeing how the completely revamped loot feels, especially with this next part right here. AZMERIAN WISPS. So the WISPs were a great example of content that wasn't feeling rewarding enough because item rarity was not having enough of an effect. WISPs now feel much better from those changes alone, but we also made the following changes. Rare monsters possessed by AZMERIAN WISPs now always drop a rare item. Okay, so kind of like the bosses here. And then fixed a bug where the first wisp in the Grellwood didn't have its item rarity or quantity stats. That's an oof. That's the very first time you're encountering it. It didn't have any effect. It just made the monster harder, and it didn't do anything, which is pretty funny. Okay, now we're getting to the section that let's look at it. Rare and magic chests. So essentially, they just buffed chests. They decreased the quantity of chests, and they massively buffed them. You want to feel excited when you find these chests, and you click on them, and they have loot in them. Oh, you just click on them, and they have loot. You don't do anything else. You just find them. It's just pure dopamine, right? What do you think that you get? What are they doing here? Okay, because the chests are this is the most boring thing in the game, right? I get it. There's supposed to be a little extra loot explosion. My theory is it's a further way to help get rid of loot on the ground, right? Because you have to open these chests to get more items. So instead of all the loot being on the ground, like in Path of Exile 1, essentially, in PoE 2, you have loot from monsters on the ground. You have loot from chests. You have loot from shops. They're in all these different areas, right? I'm wondering if they just have the chests in there for that reason. Like what? But I don't know if I'm a fan of locking the loot behind just clicking the button. I don't know. Is this a silly thing to get caught up on? I feel like it is. Maybe it's because it's almost midnight here. But reading this and reading all the, like, they want this to be fun. They want the chest to be, ooh, a chest, cool. I don't know. I'd rather just love to see, ooh, like a mimic. Oh, whoa. Yo, Mimic League. I know they have strong boxes. We'll talk about strong boxes in a second. But I just don't think chests are it. I don't know. I want to do more than just click something to get a cool reward. Okay, and I know I'm playing Lightning Spear, so that's a little bit of a silly thing to say since I am just clicking one button to blast an entire screen. Okay, let's talk about strong boxes. They're essentially going to be equivalent to the New Balance for rare chests, which is great. Look at this. Strong boxes have increased item quantity and item rarity, guarantee a rare item as well as getting it further, plus 50% more item quantity and item rarity in Cruel, and 100% more in Endgame. I mean, I think that might be fair. I don't think that's going crazy because sometimes open a chest, open a strong box, get nothing out of it. It happened. Researchers' strong boxes will now have a much higher chance to drop a rare currency instead of magic currency. Ooh, that's exciting. Okay. I'm all for the more currency, guys. We need more currency so we can gamble more. Reduce the variance in the number of items strong boxes drop. They should more consistently drop a good number of items, okay? So, not crazy changes to strong boxes, just bringing them up to chests and giving more currency drops. I loved unique strong boxes. No real changes for those. It's just for the base strong boxes. Uniques are awesome. Trial of the Sekimas basically made it more rewarding, especially the chests. Not a lot of interesting stuff here, guys. I'm just gonna breeze through it. You can read through it if you want right now, but not much interesting with Sakuma. Trial of Chaos. This is interesting. In the Trial of Chaos, we were finding that corrupted item rewards were no longer valuable in endgame. True. You can't edit corrupted items. It's not PoE 1. In order to improve the rewards, we have made the following changes. As you continue to increase the level you play the Trial of Chaos, corrupted rares are phased out from the rewards and rare currency stacks are phased in. Trial of Chaos Divine Farming. Or other things. I don't know. We'll have to see. And then items that drop from monsters in the trial are no longer corrupted. They don't have a chance to be corrupted. It's cool. I mostly like this one. We'll see if we're going to get big stacks of currency. Expedition. I already thought Expedition was busted. And like I said at the top of the video, I just finished watching Darth's video on PoE 2 and loot. And he was like, yeah, Expedition, you know, it might be subjective, but Expedition has a lot of stuff in it. I feel that way too. I haven't done a lot of Expeditions, but every time I do Expedition, I'm getting a lot. However, there's one thing I want to call out here, okay? So they buffed it across the board. Boom, right here. Doubled the number of expedition artifacts that drop. Recombination, baby! Recombination was not accessible to someone like me who does not play a lot. It wasn't accessible to casual players. It wasn't accessible to people who were not going into expedition and getting lots of encounters. Now it might be a little bit more accessible. So I am pretty excited about that. Delirium, they made it easier. So it went from being 5x difficulty to 3x difficulty, and they increased the amount of item rarity per depth in Delirium encounters. So it's a buff, 2.5x times what it was before. And then here's some changes to accessibility to Pinnacle content. Big drop rate increase for splinters, Delirium splinters, and right here, King of the Mist, another 50%, plus 50%. Wow. Okay, and then there are a few other changes. These are good ones. Reduce the number of corrupted nexuses you need to complete your Atlas passive tree. Each corrupted nexus now grants 5 skill points, allowing you to complete this task much faster. Good. Good. I still think they should add some variety to that endgame quest. We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. And then increase the visibility of corrupted nexuses so that you can see them from further away. Also good, because right now, man, it's difficult to find them. Now, I'm going to look right here. We're not doing Clair Obscura yet. Is the patch in? I'm curious. The downloading? Oh, the servers are down. The servers are down. Okay, so we'll give that last little opinion. Okay. W patch. Super cool. Quite excited to log in and totally not stay up another 30 minutes so I can get a little loot dopamine before going to bed. But I think that there's one other thing that I would have loved to see in this patch, and it has to do with accessing Pinnacle content. I still think Arbiter of Ash, that first encounter, guys, Citadels, I've only seen one, Jamanra, no others anywhere. My friends, they're playing a lot too. They've found a few, but they've played, 3 to 4 times the amount of time I've played. And they've only found one Citadel each. I just think that especially that first one should be deterministic. There should be a path forward to find the Arbiter, get people hooked. Off Meta Michael on the podcast that we had yesterday had a great idea where getting the first set of Atlas passive skill points for each of the League mechanics and the Arbiter skill tree, or not League mechanics, endgame mechanics, should be very deterministic, and everything should be in a bubble around the start, right? And we kind of built on this together, and I'd love to show this in hopefully a video that'll get a lot of traction. So say you start new league, you get to the Atlas, you open it up, you do your first ritual encounter, okay? You go talk to one of the guys, one of the Val dudes. He gives you the tablet now that shows you, okay, you could put this tablet and do more ritual encounters. Look for more ritual. And then he says, oh, and by the way, there's this node on your Atlas. It's a portal to the King in the Mist dimension, okay? It's an invitation that it's just this magical portal on the Atlas itself, not a fragment, not a splinter, okay? It's on the Atlas, and it shows you where it is. It's like, 3 screens south, okay? And then you get a quest saying, okay, kill Tier 0 King in the Mist. Here's where he is. You can pat down to him. I would love that. And then after Tier 0, it's random. And it's like that for Zesht. It's like that for Ulroth. It's like that for the Arbiter. It shows you where all these things are for the first initial Tier 0 main quest for each Pinnacle boss. It gives everybody a taste of these cool mechanics and endgame bosses. And then it gets you addicted. It gets you in the loop. I love that idea. Thought it was a great idea from Off Meta Michael. Loved engineering it a bit more, and would love to see something like that implemented in 0.2.0, if not in 0.3.0, as GGG continues to iterate on this game that I'm having a lot of fun with. And third time I'm mentioning Darth, but it was so nice to see another content creator and one who has such a resounding voice in the community also just enjoying the game. I know that there are a lot of people enjoying the game, a lot of content creators enjoying it, but I did feel like I was alone for a little bit there. I won't go into it like I did in my last video, but it was just great to see. It was great to see. Really excited to log in and play this patch. It is still down on my end. Let me know your thoughts. Was this a W patch? Am I just full of copium? Am I just being, my typical positive self? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was worth recording a 12 video. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel for more Path of Exile 2 content, and I'll see you in the next one, or I'll see you in this video right here, which is a pretty deep dive into the state, the disturbing state of the community in 0.2.0, and my thoughts on the patch as a whole before this patch. Thanks again for watching. I will talk to you all later, my fellow exiles. Stay sane.